In the late 1950s, after this was about, by that time it would have been about 10 years as a monk, he was posted, asked by Self-Realization Fellowship, this was after Yogananda had passed, to go to India representing Yogananda's work in America in India. And he spent his first initial years, and most of his years at that time, in Bengal, where the work had been centered, and is still centered, I believe, there. And so he learned very quickly. He learned Bengali. It came naturally to him, probably again from past lifetime associations, but he learned Bengali quickly, and he became noted, you might say, in that area, in Kolkata, and he was noted as a good singer, because here this Westerner had come, and he learned the language quite quickly, which people were very surprised, and he particularly was attracted to bhajans, and he learned many classical bhajans, and particularly ones to the Divine Mother, which referenced, as Aditya referenced. And he began to sing there. He found opportunities of being able to reach people, and bhajans being so appreciated that it was a natural for him to start. He used tambura and so forth in the harmonium, and he began to share in that way, along with discourse as well. And he met Ananda Ma and developed a very strong relationship with her. And Ananda Ma would even invite him to come up and say, Swamiji, you come, Kriyanandaji, sing for us. And he would come and he would sing for her, and he would sing for the other devotees in Ma's ashrams in those days. And so this was part of him, and part of his mission, you might say. So he was singing Master's chants, Yogananda's chants, traditional bhajans, and then, for him, in his personal life, tragedy struck for various circumstances, much too long to explain in this context. He was put out of SRF. And in that, and being put out, he was at a loss of what to do. And he didn't know he wanted to represent Yogananda's work. That was his core value in life, what his life was dedicated to, but he didn't know how to do that. And that parting took place in 1962. And he was recalled from India, and he lived in Northern California where his parents were, and he took up residence with them for a while. And in 1964, 2 years after his separation from the Self-Realization Fellowship, he took a vacation, a 1-week vacation, a camping seclusion. He went to Yosemite National Park in California, beautiful place, and he went there and set up a tent and stayed there for a week. And one of the days he was there, he was walking, I suppose it was in the big meadow there at the park, and he went over a bridge over the river that's there, and there were 2 young men on the bridge singing, or trying to sing, as Swami said. They had a guitar, and they were sort of, 2 young fellows were trying to sing, and Swami he made acquaintance with them, said hello, and then he said, hey, you want me? I can sing a song. You want me to sing a song for you? And I said, yes, yeah. And so he sang a song, but then he realized, God, what am I going to sing? They weren't young men, California that time. They weren't. Bhajans was not going to be the answer that they were looking for. And then he was trained in classical voice. So he was these classical voice of the famous composers. That wasn't going to work either. So he didn't have anything to sing, but he remembered an African American spiritual gospel song, "Swing Low." Remember, we even sang this some months ago. We heard the Satsang, "Swing Low, Sweet Chariot." Anyway, so he sang that song for them, and they were impressed. They said, "Wow, you're really good." And they said, "You have to come tonight. We're having a party tonight. And you have to come tonight and sing." And Swami said, "Oh, well, okay. That's where you're in." So they told him. And this is a camping area, so they had a campfire and many people. And he showed up, and he sang "Swing Low, Sweet Chariot" again. He didn't know anything else. So that would be appealing in the situation. But he had a good time, and everybody appreciated it, and they were very appreciative of his talent. So his seclusion came to an end, and he was driving home, back from Yosemite National Park to the San Francisco area where his parents' house was. And he said, I wish I could have thought of some more songs to sing. He was a little remorseful and critical of himself because he didn't have anything more to sing. But he said, what do I sing? I couldn't, I don't want to sing, popular songs. As Swami would say, I love you, you love me, I love you, heartbreak or something, which is typical popular music. And he says, I don't want to sing that. I'm not going to sing that. And so he was thinking along these lines, and then the thought occurred. He says he was driving, and the thought occurred. He says, well, maybe I can write my own songs. And he says immediately he had that thought, then a melody came into his mind. And the lyrics to the song came immediately into his mind. And he began to remember it. He says he pulled off the road at that point. There was a milkshake stand there. And he pulled off into the parking lot milkshake stand, bought a milkshake, got a napkin, and he started writing the song down. He could write musical notation, so he would remember the melody too, and the lyrics. He wrote it down, and then he went home to his parents. And his brother had left a guitar there, a very good quality guitar, actually. Had left it there, and he saw that guitar, but he didn't really play the guitar. But he went out the next day, and he bought a book of how to teach yourself how to play the guitar. so he had played the piano before, and so he began to try to and put this melody that had come to his mind played on the guitar. He says, and immediately more songs began to come. He began to receive more, 1, 2, sometimes 3 a day. And he just began writing them down. They were just coming from somewhere into his mind. And at that time, he had made contact with a friend of his from Bengal, Mr. Dr. Chowdhury, who had an institute. It was called the Integral Yoga Institute. No, that's not right. The Yoga, oh gosh, I forgot the exact name of what it is. But he had this center, Integral Center, something like that, in San Francisco. And he would go there on Sundays to help him, sometimes leading satsangs on Sunday. And so he went, and he went there and took his guitar with his few songs, and he began singing as part of the satsang he would lead there. And people said, wow, that's really great. Those songs are wonderful. And then one fellow asked him, says, you have to come and give a concert next month at my place, and I'll do all the promotion. So Swami said, he sort of gulped, He said, okay. He says, I like challenges in his mind. So he took the challenge to do a concert. And he says, but he wasn't very good at the guitar, and all these songs were just starting to come to him. And so, but he said it was a challenge, and he said he practiced like crazy just to learn how to be able to play those songs on the guitar. And he went, showed up there, and he says everything was great, except the fellow who was leading the concert. He wanted to create a meditative mood. So he turned all the lights off, and he just lit a candle, up on the altar. There's one. And he says, Swami said, well, but the problem was the candle was behind me, and I desperately needed the light so I could see the strings on the guitar. He says, but I did the best I could, and I said, I played my guitar, my songs, and I sang Indian bhajans, and I told stories. And he says it was a wildly great success, and one fellow comes out of the crowd afterwards who was a musical major at a university and says, those were some interesting chords you were playing. Because he was getting, he couldn't see what he was playing. And he says, and thus my musical career was launched. Now, what he did from there is, he said, what happened was he just continued to have songs. And he said through the rest of his life, really, he eventually composed over 400 songs. many of some chants, bhajans in their own right, somewhat. And he said, I didn't compose those songs. They were given to me. They weren't mine. They were given to me. And all the songs, and that's how it was. When he would write a song, it would come to him, and then he would write it down. And he was open to that. And so we wanted to share with you some of these songs. And remember what he said, if you want to know me, listen to my music. He called them philosophy and song because he wanted to use music to give a message. And that message is his master's teachings. Paramahansa Yogananda's, his guru's teachings is what he always shared. And this was his way of sharing through music. So I'm going to turn it over to Para. We're going to sing some songs, and then I'll come back and sum up afterwards. During those early years when Swamiji was first composing music, learning to play the guitar, and trying to set himself on a path that had meaning for him and was allowing him to serve Master, he took up lessons of how to play a guitar. And his guitar teacher would say, well, your songs are so, they're so joyful. It's not reality. This world is a world of suffering. There's a world of darkness out there. There's dark forces. You should try to reflect that in your music as well. And Swami, he said, well, he gave it some thought because he liked his teacher, and he went back home and he tried to compose some dark songs with in response to that, and came back a week later, and he said, I'm sorry, I just couldn't do it. He just couldn't do it. But he did have a song for him, and it was a song of, someday we'll sing this one as well, and Baro can perhaps maybe perform it, but one of us, it was called the Non-Blues, in a sense of parody on satire on the typical very dark and depressing type of songs that were somewhat reflective, his guitar teacher was suggesting, of the suffering in the world. But then another person came up to him after he did a concert, and she said, your songs are happy. Your songs are joyful. It must be because you've never suffered in your own life. And Swami responded to her. He says, no, ma'am. I have suffered. But it is because I have suffered that it gives me the right to sing these songs of joy. And these are not sentimental songs. They're songs that reflect victory. In other words, a victory of joy over suffering. And that's what the message of these songs are. Swami went through great trials in his life. He came here to India in the latter decade or so of his life, but it was a time of grace for him, and he appreciated his time here in India. He loved India, but it was a time of grace where many of those challenges had passed him were behind him, and he was in that state of grace at that time in his life. But the many challenges he faced, for example, there was one, we had a temple. He had extremely hard work. He had raised money for a temple in the early years of Ananda. And very shortly after it was completed, within a year and a half, in 1970, that temple burned down one night. Altar fire, probably, a candle on the altar. And it burned completely to the ground. Much work had gone into that. And the next day, he absorbed that, but then he went shopping at the local grocery store where the lady there was a French lady, and the French lady was remarkable in her reaction to Swami when he came in the door because he was singing. And he says, sir, in her French accent to it, she says, sir, how is it that you can be singing when you just lost your temple? I would be crying for months. And he said, well, madam, I've lost the temple, but I haven't lost my voice. And this was his message. And I think the message that I took from his life And the message that I would share with you as well is when we have difficulties in life, when there's dark times in our life, when there's trials in our life, bad karma comes to flowering in our life, we confront that not by suffering, but confront it with joy. And this is what Swami did in his life. Everything, when the difficult times came, he didn't put them beside him or behind him in the sense of ignoring them. He confronted them. But how do you confront them? You confront joy. You confront suffering with joy. You confront darkness with light. Adversity with greater will and energy to overcome that challenge. And the message that I took from that, from his life, watching him go through all of his struggles in life, was we always have a choice. Always. There's never a time in our life, no matter what happens to us, that we cannot choose. Do we face the light? Do we put out joy? Or do we succumb to suffering and turn our back on joy and look in the darkness? That choice is always ours. And to those of you, myself, who would like to become saints in this lifetime, we must, in all circumstances, make the right choice. Choose joy, choose laughter, choose a smile over a frown, choose the upward path, and in this lifetime we too can become free. Joy to all of you on behalf of Swami Kriyananda.